Hello to everyone and welcome to Energy Capital News. I'm Ana Tafoya and today I'm with Joel Moxley, President and CEO at the GPA Midstream Association. Joel will talk with us about the challenges, learned lessons, and insights the pandemic has led so far on the GPA Midstream Association. Joel, thank you so much for being with us today. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Nice to see you today.
Thank you very much, Joel. So I'll start with the first question. What have been the challenges for the GPA Midstream Association as an organization in the face of the pandemic so far, in terms of its members, communication with them, the remote work scheme, and implementing new standards?
Well, it's certainly been a challenging year. One of the first things that happened to us in the spring is we have an annual convention where we bring together a couple thousand of midstream people. And that was scheduled for mid-April in New Orleans. And so that meeting, because of the pandemic, we ultimately canceled it. And so huge change, it had a huge impact. We've been used to working together in person. Our committees meet in person. We had speakers lined up. So to cancel that was a huge hole in our organization for the year. So that was we started, and to keep things going, we began to have virtual meetings. So we had board meetings. We recorded many of our speakers that were scheduled to come to the convention and made those available to members that would have come otherwise. And so we started to adapt to what we have here in 2020 is not being able to meet. So what do? We find ways to work around it. So we met virtually as much as we could. We also then, as we went through the year, tried to look for other opportunities. So we had board meetings scheduled for August. We had those again virtually. So both GPA Midstream and our sister organization, GPSA Association, which are the suppliers that support GPA Midstream companies. So we had board meetings for that. In the fall, we had a technical conference that in 2019 was in person, in 2020 was virtual. And so instead of doing that over 2.5 days in person, we did it over 3 weeks, where we had people live in the first week, and then we had recordings available for the next couple of weeks. So again, we probably touched almost as many people in the fall technical conference as we would have in person, but we did it in a different format. So what else have we done? We've as our member companies have adjusted to 2020, we've had to adjust with them. There were companies had workforce reductions. That impacts us from the standpoint of people that we interact with, people that supply expertise to our committee work, our technical work, our advocacy work. And so we've had to adapt, just like those companies have had to adapt in a pandemic world. So the big overarching message for 2020, just like all of us had to do, is we've had to adapt to a different environment.
For sure, Joel. And what is the importance of organizations like GPA Midstream to help the natural gas market specifically, considering their configurations in demand that COVID-19 measures have brought?
Our organization's been around for a long time. We represent the midstream. Many of our members go right to the wellhead and pick up natural gas. So we are part of the supply chain of natural gas in the U.S. We process natural gas. We take the natural gas liquids and fractionate those, send those to market. So midstream's a very strong, vital part of the U.S. Supply chain of moving energy from wellhead to markets. And so we are a part of that. As the market has had to adapt, gas and oil was shut in some parts of the year as we got into demand fell off in the April and May time period. We just had to adapt. Our companies had to adapt to that. They operated as efficiently as they could. They cut their costs where they could. They went to their customers and asked them what they could do to help them. And so, everybody had to pitch in an environment like this. In this pandemic, nobody was immune from being impacted by this. So I think GPA midstream companies were part of the solution in the U.S. as far as working through the demand changes, the supply changes that had to happen in an ever-changing environment market that we had this year.
And you talked about the workforce cuts in your members. So what have been some of the biggest challenges that GPA Midstream members have faced due to the pandemic that they have shared with you in terms of demand, supply, sanitary restrictions, for example?
Well, I think, when you go through a change that some of these companies have done, and they were doing it a lot of cases remotely. And so they had to reconfigure their workforces. People took on new jobs, new responsibilities, and they did it remotely too. So they weren't in their offices, they were working from home, or they were working, some combination of working from home and working some days in the offices. And so it was a lot of moving parts in a short amount of time. And I think it's a testament that, our safety records maintained. In other words, we were still operating safely, people adapted, services were provided. There were no major outages of natural gas or natural gas liquids or facilities. And so I think people adapted in a very efficient way in a very difficult circumstances. What does that mean for our organization? Well, it means that we may not have the same people that we're dealing with that we used to deal with, as jobs shift around and people either retire or they're part of a workforce reduction. But we just have to adapt. This organization, GPA Midstream, we will celebrate our 100th anniversary in 2021. So if you look back over that time period, we've had World War II, we've had 9/11, we've had, all sorts of changes, political changes, cultural changes. And so this is just the latest of that. And so just like all businesses, we're going to adapt and look forward to the future. Hopefully that's better times.
From GPA Midstream experience, what are some of the benefits of working through national and international chapters?
From a national standpoint, and that's really most of our focus these days, is we do a lot of work on behalf of our membership in Washington. So we're there to make comments and work with regulators and legislators to make rules, adjustments to how we do business and do it hopefully as efficiently as we can. We certainly want to emphasize safety, environmental stewardship, but we also want to do it in a way that makes sense economically and, tie something to practical. So we want to be a very practical organization, realizing that in these times, there's a lot of emphasis on environmental stewardship, on ESG reporting, some things like that are new to us, and we want to be involved. We are involved in those. And so we're working with our regulators and just to make sure that our interests are protected, our members' interests are protected as these big ideas are being debated.
And Joel, you will know this, but GPA Midstream has greatly fostered recognition within the industry through various awards. In this sense, what has been the impact of such recognition on your members' performance and also in the sector in general, not only in your members?
Awards are, recognition for work well done. Sometimes we pat people on the back that do the legwork. There's always there's a team of people that get to achieve results. And so, as we were mentioning earlier about our legislative and regulatory efforts, we have a staff or two staffers in Washington that spearhead that, but they couldn't work without a team of committees behind them, providing them expertise that comes from their knowledge of doing their job every day. And so we then give annual awards for people that work on our committees, whether it's the advocacy type folks or in our technical committees. And so we have a whole host of technical committees and advocacy committees. And so we recognize those people because they are the true heroes. Those are the people that help us as an organization be successful. So yes, awards are part of that. It's part of the recognition of efforts that people put on, hopefully for the greater good of our industry and in our country.
And finally, could you tell us more about the GPA Midstream Convention and how are you preparing for the 2021 edition of the event?
Yeah, that's a big one. It's our 100th anniversary, so we hope it's greatly attended. Historically, over the last several decades, our conventions were in April. We actually spring, sometimes March, but in recent years, more like mid-April. We've made a decision a few months ago to try to move the 2021 event to September with the thought process that vaccines will be much more available in the first and second quarter of 2021, and hopefully by near the end of the third quarter, people will feel comfortable with traveling again and going to large groups. So we are moving the event back to September of 2021, which has now necessitated us moving subsequent years back to September. So for the next several years, we will have our annual convention in September rather than in the spring we've had. So we hope that by moving it in 2021, we'll have more regular attendance. We're looking forward to seeing everybody. As I talk with people, while it's nice to have Zoom calls and Zoom meetings, there's no real substitute for having in-person talks and just, shaking somebody's hand and seeing someone you haven't seen in a long time face to face. So we're really looking forward to coming back together as an organization with our friends in September of 2021 in San Antonio. And San Antonio's been a great host of our convention many times over the years. So it's a good location, centrally located in Texas. So a lot of our members can drive there and then easy to get to for folks who need to fly in.
Thank you so much for your time and your insights. And would you like to add something else?
No, just thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today, and look forward to, again, everyone having a great 2021. Not that we're sad to see 2020 go. There's been some good things happen in 2022, but I think everybody's looking forward to a 2021 and we get back to normal life again after this pandemic. So thank you again for your time, and look forward to seeing what happens to our industry in 2021.